Well, hello, my name is Evan Gregory, and this is Bible Answers. Tonight's topic is going to be on hell or the different realms of the dead. And so, pretty interesting topic, at least it is to me. And so, I hope that you'll stay tuned and listen to what I have to say about it. This is brought to you by North Columbus Church of Christ. We are out of Columbus, Mississippi, and our website is northcolumbuschristians.com. You can find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you're either watching on Facebook or YouTube. So please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see the different things that we're doing. Get on our website, you'll be able to see, get links to past sermons, listen to what the things that we believe, contact information, so on and so forth. And we'd love for you to visit. We meet at Sundays 9, 10, 11 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. And if you're watching this, you got a question, leave a comment. Even if it's not related to this topic, I'll respond to those things. And so, going straight to the lesson, again, talking about hell and different realms of the dead, and the reason I say that, and I just say, well, this is a lesson on hell, this is going to be more of an informative lesson that Bible translations can render multiple Hebrew and Greek words as hell. Now, remember, New Testament was written in Greek, Old, and Hebrew, and so, again, we'll see those different words being translated, and so we'll have like Sheol, Gehenna, Tartarus, Hades, those different words being described or being translated as hell. And so, one thing that we have to think about and kind of wrap around in our heads is, are those all those different words that are all translated as hell, are they all referencing the same place? And that's what I intend to try to get into at this lesson. And first of all, the first word I want to look at is the word Sheol. It's found around 63 times in the Bible, and the translation, it is Hades, or the world of the dead. And so this would be a place of the dead. And not only is it translated as hell, it's also translated as grave and translated as pit as well. And in one particular verse, Psalm 16 verse 10, for example, it says, "For you will not leave my soul in Sheol, nor will you allow your Holy One to see your corruption," and to see corruption. And of course, we'll read a few verses later on, and this is talking about Jesus. And so his soul is not going to be left in Sheol, and your Holy One is not going to see corruption. Now, and also, it's like, for example, Psalm 49 verse 15 says, "But God will redeem my soul from the power of the grave, for he shall receive me." That is the word Sheol for grave there as well. And so, as you're probably thinking, as far as Psalm 16, you're thinking, well, if that references to Jesus, are you saying that he went to hell? And one thing that we have to think about as far as Sheol is that this is not necessarily a place of punishment. It is a realm of the dead, but it's not necessarily a place of punishment. Going on to Acts chapter 2, Peter, talking about Jesus, he says, "For David says concerning him, I foresaw the Lord always before my face, for he is at my right hand, that I may not be shaken. Therefore my heart rejoiced, and my tongue was glad. Moreover, my flesh also will rest in hope. For you will not leave my soul in Hades, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption. And you have made known to me the ways of life. You will make me full of joy in your presence." And so again, we see that reference in Psalm 16. And moving on to verse 30 of Acts 2, it says, "Therefore, being a prophet, and knowing that God has sworn with an oath to him that of the fruit of his body, according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne, he, foreseeing this, spoke concerning the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in Hades, nor did his flesh see corruption." And so this is David talking in Psalm 16, and that psalm was fulfilled. It was a prophecy, and it was fulfilled, that Christ's soul was not left in Hades, nor did his flesh see corruption. So the question is did Christ go to hell, as in torment? And one passage I would want to point out is Luke chapter 23, beginning in verse 42. And if you think about Christ before he died, there was someone to the side of him that was on another cross. He was a thief, and the thief ultimately believes in Jesus. And in verse 42 it says, Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, Assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. So notice what he said. Today you will be with me in paradise. So Christ was going to go to Sheol. That's the way it's translated. So he's going to go to Hades in Acts chapter 2. That's what it says. But in Luke 23, Jesus says he's going to paradise today. And so how do we pull all that together? It seems to be, if we don't understand really what's going on here, we don't understand Hades and what that is, then we're not going to understand what Jesus is saying as far as being in paradise and what Peter has to say with Jesus going to Hades. And I want to look at Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31. And this is about Lazarus and the rich man. And pay attention to what is being said here. It says, There was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day, but there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at the gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torment in Hades, he lifted up his eyes, and saw Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. Then he said, I beg you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, and he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. And Abraham said to him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded that one rise from the dead. Now, there's a lot that could be said just about this particular passage. But one thing that I want to note here is that, so we have Lazarus, and then we have the rich man. And so Lazarus dies, and where does he go? He goes to what's called Abraham's bosom, and this is a place of paradise. And then we have the rich man dies, and notice what it says, he's in torment in Hades. And so there's 2 destinations that are being listed here. They're both dead, they're both in the realm of dead, but we see Abraham's bosom, and we also see this place of torment. And so, where do you think Jesus was after his death? And I believe that notice what he says, he's in torment in Hades. So this is a place of Hades, and so I believe what is being said here is that Abraham's bosom and torment represents this place called Hades and Sheol. And so I believe Jesus was right there in paradise. He was in Hades, he was in Sheol, but he was in that place of paradise. Some people believe that he was tormented. I don't believe that's the case. But I do believe that he was in this realm of the dead. And it's important for us to understand this, is that there is this realm of the dead that people go to. And we do know that there's this final place of being actually with God in heaven, and then this final everlasting torment that we're going to talk about later on in the lesson. But we do see where it seems as though there's this holding place that these souls would go to, and of course, at this holding place, you ultimately know your final destination. If you're in Abraham's bosom, you're in paradise. You know what awaits you. You're already there. And then we see here that if you're in torment, you're going to continue in torment. There's going to be no escaping that. And so, again, that's important for us to understand. And when we read those things such as Sheol, such as Hades, and when we read those difficult passages, talk about Jesus going to Hades, or I believe some translation will say Jesus went to hell. Well, did he actually go to hell as we understand it? Well, I don't believe that's the case. I believe he said he was going to be in paradise that day, and I believe that is that Hadean realm that he speaks of. Now, there's another word that's also used for hell, and it's called Tartarus. And the definition of this means to incarcerate in eternal torment or to cast down to hell. And this word, I believe it's all times reference to, or at least most of the time reference to, these angels that sinned against God. In 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4 it says, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them in the chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment." So these angels sinned. Where did they go? Where did they go? They were cast down to hell. They were cast down to Tartarus. In Jude 1 and verse 6 says, "And the angels who do not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day." And so again, this is the same place being referenced of Tartarus there. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. That's that same kind of idea of eternal punishment, but there's not much more that can be said about that. So this is this eternal place, this darkness, as Jude puts it, that they are cast down into because they sinned, and they're going to be held there. Notice what he says, 2 Peter and in Jude, that they're being held there for judgment of the great day. And so they're awaiting that judgment. Now, when we think about the place of hell or the place of eternal judgment, the word that is oftentimes used to describe that particular place in the New Testament is Gehenna, and it's found around 12 times in the Bible. And this was at that time that it was written, Gehenna was actually a place that existed. It was a valley of Jerusalem. And so Gehenna was used figuratively as this place of everlasting punishment. And why was that so? Well, it was a place where Israel actually would sacrifice or make their sons and daughters pass through fire to this false god named Molech. And so it was an abomination that was going on. And I would imagine that all these Jews during Jesus' time, when that was referenced, they would know what's going on. And after this particular incident of making their sons and daughters pass through the fire, it became this garbage dump, and there was always a fire burning. And so this Gehenna, so you have this picture of Gehenna. This is this place where sin, idolatry, abominations took place at, but currently at that particular time, it was basically a trash dump, and there was always a fire burning there. And so you can imagine there's always burning there. There's probably a very bad smell always at that place, and so it was a place that you wouldn't want to go. And in 2 Kings chapter 23 and verse 10, this is talking about King Josiah, who was a good king of Judah. He says he defiled Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or daughter pass through the fire to Molech. So this valley of the son of Hinnom there was Gehenna. And so he defiled Tophet, which was in that area, and so that a man wouldn't make his son or daughter pass through the fire. In Jeremiah 32 and verse 35 it says, "And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and daughters to pass through the fire to Molech, which I did not command them, nor did it come into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin." So they built high places of Baal in this area. They passed their sons and daughters through the fire to Molech. And notice what God says. He says, "I did not command them to do this. This did not even come into my mind that they should do this abomination." Interesting. When we think about, and another side note, when we think about God and how, and man's free will and his ability to choose for himself, that man did this action, but God said, "I didn't plan this. This did not even come into my mind. I had no part of this, or this was in no shape, form, or fashion my will. That did not even come through my mind." And notice what it was. It was an abomination. It was just the utter deepest, darkest sin that they could commit. And so you have this picture surrounding Gehenna, and Jesus uses that word to describe this place of torment. In Mark chapter 9 and verse 42 it says, "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone was hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed, rather than having two hands to go to hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame, rather than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with one eye, rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hellfire, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched." And so we see Jesus is talking about these sins and doing whatever it takes to not be overcome by those sins. And he said it's better for you to cut off your hand, cut off your foot, cut out your eye than it is to sin. And he says it is better to do that than to go to hell. And of course, this hell here is Gehenna. And he says the fire shall never be quenched. And 3 times he says at this place their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. So you get this picture. So the fire is always burning. And you think about in Gehenna, it is said that there was always a fire burning there because it was a trash pit. And so you get this picture. There's always fire. There's always heat there. But one other thing he says that their worm does not die. And so there's always these worms. I just get this picture of this nasty place that you don't want to have any part of. There's always even though there's fire there, there's still these things that are still alive, these nasty things that are still alive. And it's going to be in a sense the same way for us, in that we're going to be in this torment if we go to hell, but we're not going to be completely consumed. It's going to be this eternal torment that is going to befall us. And so he uses that word there for hell, for that place of eternal punishment. In Matthew 25, verse 39, it says, "Or when did we see you sick in prison, and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, Depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not take me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will also answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Surely I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." Notice what he says, the distinction made. Those that go into everlasting punishment, or this place of eternal torment, Gehenna, or eternal life. It is those that helped those that were around him, whether it was food, whether it was water, whether they needed clothes, whether that they were sick. And if you help those, it's the same as though you are helping Jesus, and you're going to be rewarded for that. And the same as if you don't help those that are in need, what's going to happen? You're going to go away into this everlasting punishment, just as we saw a few moments ago, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. And finally, in Revelation 20, in verses 12 through 15, we have this final judgment scene here. And it says, And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were open. And another book was opened, which is the book of life, and the dead were judged according to their works, by the things which are written in the books. The sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. Then death and Hades were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Anyone not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Notice what he says. He says there's going to be this time when people are going to be judged. And so everybody's going to be resurrected, and they're going to be a part of this judgment. Notice what he says. those that are dead. It says death and Hades delivered up the dead who were in them. So those that were in Hades, remember we're talking about this Hadean realm, they're going to be delivered up. Okay, at this great judgment. Okay, so you think about Lazarus and the rich man that we talked about that were in this Hadean realm. They're going to go to this judgment, and there's going to be this final judgment. They're going to be judged. Notice, according to their works, what they have done. And so then, ultimately, those that are faithful, those that were faithful, they're going to go to heaven. And then those that were sinful, that were not faithful, they're going to be cast into the lake of fire. That's verse 15. And also death and Hades is cast into the lake of fire. So all these things, so it seems as though Hades is done. So this is over with. This is final judgment. And so there's this final place for everybody at this time. It's either going to be heaven or hell, or this, as it may be put, Gehenna. That there's going to be this lake of fire. There's going to be this hell in which they're going to go to, and so these things are going to be eternal. And so this is our choice. Where are we going to end up? Do we want to end up in the lake of fire, or do we want to end up in heaven with God? It's up to us. It's our choice. And again, it plays a part on the things that we do. We're going to be judged according to our works. So do we really believe Christ? Do we really believe what God has to say about these things? And that's for us to decide. And so that's the end of my lesson. I hope it's been useful for y'all. Again, it was more of an informative lesson. I want to talk about because there's much to talk about that. And it can be confusing when you talk about hell. Because hell, depending on what translation, can mean actually different places depending on what translation you can use. So again, hope it's been edifying. We'll try to keep on putting these videos up pretty regular. If you got a question or comment, leave those on YouTube, leave those on Facebook, and please, if you're watching this, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks.